They say kingdoms are not lost by war alone. Sometimes they fall because of a whisper, a glance, or the wrong heartbeat at the wrong moment. In the year 1191, in the brutal shadow of the Third Crusade, a queen stood at the edge of her crumbling throne. Her kingdom, Jerusalem, had already fallen to the blade of Saladin. But what history often forgets is that long before swords clashed at the gates, the rot had already begun within her court. Planted by love, watered by ambition, and finally brought to bloom by betrayal. This is not the story you were told in school. This is not the legend of Richard the Lionheart or the heroics of European kings waving crosses beneath the scorching Levantine sun. This is the hidden truth. The story of Queen Isabella of Jerusalem, her secret union with a French knight named Conrad of Montferrat, and a betrayal so deep it shattered the balance of power in the Holy Land forever. But to understand how it all unraveled, we have to begin where all forbidden tales begin, behind closed doors. Isabella wasn't supposed to be queen. She was the daughter of Amalric I, a Latin king in a land that despised Latin rule. Her half-sister, Sibylla, was the rightful heir, married to Guy of Lusignan, a man whose reckless decisions had already cost Jerusalem its defenses. After the catastrophic defeat at the Battle of Hattin in 1187, where thousands of Crusaders were slaughtered and the true cross of Christ was seized, Jerusalem fell into the hands of Saladin. The Christians were desperate. The holy city was gone. The prestige of the Crusader states was in tatters. The barons of Outremer, the powerful lords of the remaining Crusader lands, began to whisper, "Perhaps the wrong man wears the crown." And so, eyes turned toward Queen Isabella, young, widowed, royal, and most importantly malleable. Enter Conrad of Montferrat. A seasoned knight from the north of Italy, Conrad arrived in Tyre and immediately set himself apart. While Guy of Lusignan fumbled with politics and pride, Conrad fortified the city of Tyre and held it against Saladin's advancing armies. He became a symbol of strength, a knight who could save what was left of Christian rule in the East. But strength alone was not enough. Conrad needed legitimacy. He needed a crown, and for that he needed Isabella. The problem? Isabella was already married. Her husband, Humphrey IV of Torin, was soft-spoken, polite, and politically useless. The barons needed a warrior king, so they made a decision that would stain the legacy of Jerusalem forever. They forced Isabella to divorce her husband. Reports say she was dragged from her bed, weeping, and held against her will until she agreed to the annulment. At 18 years old, the Queen of Jerusalem was married off again, this time to Conrad, by men who claimed it was for the salvation of the kingdom. But it was never about salvation. It was about power, and Conrad knew how to wield it. With his marriage to Isabella, he now had a claim to the throne. But the problem was, Guy of Lusignan wasn't going to step down so easily. He still had allies, most notably King Richard the Lionheart of England. Richard didn't trust Conrad. There were whispers of shifting allegiances, rumors that Conrad had once negotiated with Saladin. In the complicated chessboard of Crusader politics, that was enough to paint a man as a traitor. So the court split. The Templars and Richard supported Guy. The native barons and the Hospitallers supported Conrad. The kingdom of Jerusalem, such as it still existed, fractured into factions. And while the kings of Europe marched under the cross, their banners fluttering proudly in the desert wind, behind the scenes, a civil war brewed like poison in a chalice. Then, a vote was held. The barons chose Conrad. He would be king, but the crown never touched his head. On the night of April 28, 1192, just days after being confirmed as king, Conrad was walking home through the narrow alleys of Tyre. A man approached him with a letter. As Conrad reached for it, two figures leapt from the shadows and drove daggers into his chest. He staggered backward, blood soaking his robe, and collapsed into the dirt. He died minutes later. The assassins were caught. They were members of a feared secret order known only by a whisper in history. The Hashishin. Yes, the assassins. Masters of stealth. Killers for hire. Agents of the Old Man of the Mountain. But who hired them? Richard the Lionheart denied any involvement. Yet weeks later, a letter surfaced, supposedly from the assassin leader himself, claiming Richard had requested the murder. Others said it was Saladin, hoping to further destabilize the Christians. Still others whispered that it was Isabella herself, that she, tired of being a pawn, sought to become queen not beside a man, but alone. The truth? It may never be known, but in the ashes of Conrad's murder, the kingdom of Jerusalem shattered for good. Isabella, now twice widowed, was forced yet again into another marriage, this time to Henry of Champagne, Richard's nephew. Convenient, political, and eerily fast. Was this justice, or just another move in the endless game? Within months, the Third Crusade ended. Richard made peace with Saladin, securing access for Christian pilgrims but leaving Jerusalem in Muslim hands. The once proud Latin kingdom limped into the next century, a shell of its former glory. And the woman at the heart of it all, Isabella, faded from the spotlight, though she remained queen until her death in 1205. But the damage had been done. The betrayal that ended a kingdom wasn't in a battlefield charge or siege tower breach. It was in the silent corridors of palaces, in whispered alliances, and in blood spilled under moonlight by faceless men with blades. The queen, the knight, and a betrayal that echoed through history like a curse. So the next time you hear tales of the Crusades, of knights and crosses and battles for holy lands, remember the story they don't tell, of a queen who never had a choice, a knight who reached too far, and a betrayal that not only ended a kingdom, but began a legend. And perhaps, that's the real holy war, fought not for faith, but for control, legacy, and the price of love in a world where loyalty is a luxury no one can afford. Because in the end, kingdoms don't fall in storms. They fall in silence.